Well, welcome to Black Men Speak, a podcast that highlights ordinary Black men doing extraordinary things. I'm your host, Keith Dent, and it's just truly great to be here on this beautiful July day. Wherever you are, I'm sure it is beautiful, whether it's raining or you're at the beach or you're just, hey, barbecue's barbecue season, and I'm just glad I'm able to be here with you. Um, and today is a special day for us, because there are two shows today, not necessarily back to back, but the brother I'm getting ready to speak to, I was just so uh, intrigued by his story that hey, he had an event that he had to attend, so I had to make sure I got him on today, and this time best suited his schedule, and so I'm like, hey, I'm going to make accommodations for this brother because his story was just fascinating and wonderful, and I just wanted to make sure it was told today when he had the time and we had the time to really talk about it. And so his name is Omari Anderson. So he's the founder and the CEO of the Best Dirty Lemonade. And I mean, that name itself is like, because lemonade's such a clean drink. So can't wait to dig into why he named it that. But it was a brand that's born out of his personal mission, and I'm gonna not talk about that yet because I really want him to talk about that in his story. But from his from that, he has deep academic roots in law and liberal arts. He's a graduate of Morehouse College and Howard University of Law, School of Law. He found himself tapping into culinary memories of his childhood, and that's what helped him spark creating this beverage. And his commitment to making a difference extends beyond his business. He's an active member of the Minority Cannabis Business Association, and he's a proud graduate of the 2022 Black Cannabis Northeastern Cohort. In his journey, Omari has demonstrated that with resilience, passion, and strong sense of purpose, transformative solutions can emerge from even the most challenging circumstances. And we're going to really talk about, what was some of that resilience and passion and, the purpose that he has. So, um, Omari, welcome, sir. How you doing today, brother?
Mr. Dent, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Great, great, great. So we're just going to go ahead and get started. The best dirty lemonade. So, like I said, lemonade's such a clean, refreshing drink, but you named it the best dirty lemonade. So, one, how did the name come about, and why did you get started?
Yeah. So the name came about because I wanted people to know that there's something in our lemonade, but I didn't want to hit you with it in your face to begin with, right?
Okay.
When we first started, we were doing a lot of pop-ups, a lot of trade shows, and people would have to come up to us and engage with us. And I wanted them to ask the question, what makes it dirty? And then I would always say, it's infused with premium cannabis. And they would either say, wow, that sounds delicious, or they would run for the hills saying, I don't do drugs. So one of two things happened. Also, when we first started, there was a popular mixtape series by the rapper Future called Dirty Sprite. And,
Okay.
me being of a certain age and a hip hop aficionado, I wanted to also play on that type of popularity.
Oh, okay. Okay. So it was infused with, you said it's infused with cannabis. So, what made you decide to infuse some lemonade with cannabis?
Yeah, so this actually was born out of tragedy. So my mother was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's at a very early age, in her early 50s, 52 to be exact. And as the disease progressed, I saw a couple things happening to my mother, right? She was became agitated. She also wasn't
Mm.
eating, and she wasn't sleeping throughout the night. Dealing with anybody who has a chronic disease such as Alzheimer's, and if they're not sleeping, it really weighs on you because you already have caretaker fatigue, but if you're also unable to get proper rest the next day, you're no good to anybody. me being a casual cannabis user at the time, I know what cannabis did for me in relation to my eating and my sleeping. So I decided to call on some old recipes I remember from my childhood. So my mother's a first generation American, and her being of Jamaican descent, she used to always make these, tropical drinks and fresh
Mm,
juices. And so I knew that I wasn't going to get her to sit there and actively smoke or consume cannabis the normal way that people think about it, right? Whether it's smoking a joint or a blunt or something
mm,
of that nature.
hmm hmm
Um, so we had to find a way to make it more palatable and still have the same effect for her to get the desired effects, which is, increased appetite, sound sleeping throughout the night, like restorative sleep.
Okay. And did you see results right away, or when did it really start? When you start to see results with your mom?
Yeah, we did see results right away. And I want to be clear, right? Our drink wasn't a miracle drink. It did not reverse the effects of the Alzheimer's. In fact, I always say it's more of palliative care. Um, my mother did end up passing on September 11th, 2019.
Mm.
But I do know for the last 2 years of her life, I think we were able to extend her life because once somebody decides to stop eating, it's really, it's typically downhill from there.
Oh yes, and sorry for your loss.
Thank
I
you.
know that that journey must have been tough in itself, and I wanted to kind of go back to a little bit, with your mom, and what were some of the tell me about your mom. What were some of your favorite memories about her?
Yeah, I mean, I had an amazing yet stern mother. Um, like I said, Jamaican heritage, she really didn't put up with much nonsense. But we had an amazing relationship. Especially as I got older, I found myself really looking to my mom for guidance whenever I was going through hard times in life, especially in college. She transitioned more from the motherly figure to almost like a best friend role. And we spoke daily while I was in college. Yeah, I really had an amazing mother. I was lucky.
Okay, well, that's great. That's great. Glad to hear. And then just a few minutes ago, you had mentioned that you used cannabis, or I guess you want to call it marijuana. And you mentioned how did it help you with your sleep? What is it that, what were the benefits of using it for yourself?
Yeah, for me, I found myself just as a recreational user of cannabis. I would just, hang out with friends in social settings and may pass a joint around. Um, that was when I was in college. And then as I got older, I noticed some of my colleagues in law school being able to, consume cannabis and write these amazing papers. Right. And I was always like, okay, I want to try the same thing. Unfortunately, what's good for the goose is not good for the gander. I found that cannabis with me and writing papers did not work out
It
well
did not work.
at all. No. So this is probably why I make lemonade now versus practice law.
Gotcha. Hey, truly understandable. I guess what is good for the goose is not always good for the gander. That is, especially when it comes to that stuff. So yeah, so you had the best dirty lemonade. You're using it for your mom is using it, for the palliative care. And then somehow it gets to a point where you want to turn it into a business. So how did that come about, and what made you realize or know that, hey, this might be something that I could start?
Yeah. So my mom ends up passing in 2019. So before anybody knew anything about COVID, before the world shuts down. And once my mom passed, I kind of decided not to think about the lemonade. I wasn't touching it. COVID happens, and as soon as the world starts to open up a little bit here in Atlanta, I went to a house party with friends, and I brought some lemonade as my gift to the community, and they loved it. Everybody was asking,
Okay.
"How can we get more of this? What's the recipe?" And at that point, I said, "No, I'm not giving you the recipe. But here, let's figure this out. So that was our first foray into trying to figure out a commercial recipe to get to the masses.
Oh, okay. Was it a house party?
It was a house party, absolutely.
Okay. So that
So
means that people were a little bit more communicative with this thing.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I don't want to say that I shouldn't be admitting that we were having house parties during COVID, right? This is probably the worst thing we could be
I
talking
mean, we're about 2 years past. What are they going to do now?
Touche, touche.
That's cool. 'Cause I'm sure the brothers were like, "Hey, this stuff is working for me." Where'd you get this stuff from? Especially with community relationships now, it can be a little challenging. So anything to loosen up the lips a little bit and get people talking is always beneficial.
Absolutely.
Okay, so with that said, how long did it take after that house party to really start to get started and moving towards the business?
Yeah, about 2 years, right?
Okay,
Because what I was giving my mother was produced in small batches, and it didn't have a very long shelf life. Had fresh ingredients, things of that
okay,
nature, and so we had to find a way to produce something that could have a decent shelf life, just so it could be transported and it didn't have to be stored, refrigerated, right? Would have shelf stability. So it took
okay.
about 2 years to really hone our recipe, but now I think we're onto something phenomenal.
Great, great. Um, and do you have how many products do you have?
Yeah, so currently on the market, we have seven. So in the state of Massachusetts, we have actually, I said seven, I misspoke. We have eight. So in the state of
Okay,
Massachusetts, this is what our bottle looks like. And we are in 9 dispensaries across the state. We have our 5 milligram bottle, and then we have a 25 milligram medical use bottle. This is full spectrum THC. And then via our website and other places, you can purchase our hemp derived Delta 9, and it comes in 3 flavors. This is actually our strawberry. We have our classic lemonade, and then we have my favorite, the blue raspberry. So
okay.
these are 60 milligrams in a 12-ounce bottle. And then we also have a 2-ounce bottle that's 10 milligrams.
Oh, okay, okay. Um, and for I guess a non-user like myself, what are the and I'm sure it affects everybody differently, but what would be the effects of, let's say, the lowest milligram dose versus the you said 60 milligram?
Yes, yes.
60 milligram. What are some of the different effects a individual would have?
Yeah, so I first always say, please drink it over ice. I think it's best over ice. And I
Okay.
think, if you start with 2 ounces, that like a shot, that's a good starting point.
Okay.
Um,
So you're not drinking the whole thing at
no,
once.
I definitely don't recommend you drinking the whole thing.
Okay.
But if you do, I promise you, you will have the best sleep of your life. You'll
Okay.
wake up restored. um but yeah, like you said earlier, it's good for communication, right? I find that I'm most creative when I'm drinking lemonade, right? Whether that's working on projects, whether that's just hanging out with friends, telling jokes, I just feel like I'm really on it. I'm super quick-witted on the lemonade.
Okay.
And I think that's because we're used to sativa dominant strains.
I see. I see. But I mean, if you, let's say and of course, you have to have a medical, I guess to get the 60 milligrams, you have to have a medical card. Is that
No,
right?
in Massachusetts, you have to have a medical to get the 25 milligrams.
Oh, 25. Okay.
Mhm.
Gotcha. And for those who don't know, because you're in Atlanta, so why Massachusetts?
Yeah. Massachusetts just happened by happenstance, right? We entered a competition in New Orleans. We were kind of forced to enter the competition by a law school buddy of mine. He saw us at a conference and he was like, listen, if this is really what you want to do and you want to be taken seriously, you need to enter this hot box competition at the Black CannaBusiness Expo in New Orleans. So we entered the competition that morning. We were grossly unprepared. We were putting decks
Mm,
together all day to try to make a presentation. Um, but I had the love of my mom, and I had a phenomenal product, right? I had the belief in my product. And so we put it together. We end up placing second in that competition.
mm,
That
mhm.
competition is sponsored by a large multi-state operator out of Massachusetts, and they say, "Let's figure out a way to produce the lemonade and bring it to the masses." And it took about 18 months to finally conclude that deal and bring it to the masses.
Wow. Wow. Okay. And you win second place. Now, did you? Because was it a beverage? Was the category like beverages, or was it just all I guess cannabis related products that you were
No,
in the competition?
it was not a beverage competition by any means. It was all cannabis related products. We were competing against some of my friends now, right? One guy who has a phenomenal barbecue sauce that's infused. He's a veteran. He's pretty phenomenal. Another young lady has these herbal topicals that we were competing against. And the company that we lost to, they were a delivery service out of New Jersey. So, it was just a wide gambit of um, cannabis entrepreneurs.
Oh wow! So that's
And it,
even more outstanding that you were second place.
yeah, out
Wow,
of
competing.
125 people and having, put our decks together that day.
Okay, so with that said, so you probably weren't necessarily prepared to actually be in the top three. So then, I mean, and then you get, of course, introduced from the Massachusetts, and so how did you feel afterwards?
That was validation, right?
Okay.
We we were once we got that second place win, we were approached by tons of venture capitalists and other people who heard our story and were in the audience and wanted to help. In cannabis, there's a lot of sharks, for lack of a better term, but people who just want to give you these predatory loans. So we've been able to
Oh
steer
wow.
steer
Okay.
clear of those. Um, you know, like anything else, being a black man in cannabis is very hard, right? And so we're trying to navigate a lot of the pitfalls that regular entrepreneurs are navigating, but in a more regulated space. For example, banks don't want to accept your money because of the federal legality. And so now
Mm,
we're lobbying with members of Congress for a Safe Banking Act just to allow banks to accept our money and not close down our accounts. I mean, these are the types of challenges that we're also having to face on top of regular entrepreneurship challenges.
wow. So the federal, I mean, and the government is allowing these things to cannabis business to exist, but on the banking side, they're making it rather difficult.
Absolutely.
Wow, wow. Well, I hadn't really heard that, but I mean, I know licensing, especially here in New Jersey, where I am, can be challenging for businesses of color to get their licenses, and I didn't know banking was also the challenge.
Yeah,
And
yeah. New Jersey had its own complex set of problems, right? But I think they've gotten it together. I mean, I
okay,
now have friends who have one of my colleagues. He has an amazing dispensary in Trenton, New Jersey. Simply Pure. Another one of my colleagues has an amazing cultivation named Europe, and that's also in New Jersey, right? I love that we're now seeing as cannabis is coming to the East Coast, we're now seeing a wave of young, vibrant African American entrepreneurs who are
mhm,
getting their shot, right? Because it was the young black folks who really kept cannabis alive during Prohibition.
right, right, absolutely. And so what were so you said you had challenges as well being black man in the cannabis business. What are some of the other challenges that you had to go through?
Yeah, so one of our challenge was just around our formulation, right? I mean, when we first started, we were in a 8-ounce PET bottle. It looks like a little Huggies,
Yeah, yeah.
And so we found ourselves having to find sustainable packaging. And then we know that the regulation does not require, in a lot of states, these child-proof lids, but we decided to take it a step further and provide child-proof lids on all of our packaging, just to make
Mm.
sure that kids can never get into our packaging, or that we're doing all we can to prevent that, right? Um, so yeah, I mean, there are tons of challenges that we've encountered, and we've just been able to take them all one step at a time. I joke with my friends and I tell them I feel like a firefighter now that I'm an entrepreneur, right? It's just daily putting out fires. Every day we're just putting out fires. And
Okay.
I'm learning how to be better at that and to do it with a smile versus begrudgingly like when I first started.
Okay. Um, but I know you're kind of were already entrepreneurial because you had insurance brokerage. So
Yep.
what are some of whatever you feel has been some of the, I guess, differences in being this type of business, and what were some of the, I guess, the business acumen that you brought over from the insurance brokerage that you brought to this business?
Yeah. I used to always tell people, if you can sell life insurance, you can sell anything, right? I mean, oftentimes people are buying life insurance and they will never be the beneficiary of it, right? They'll never see the benefit, but they're doing it for their loved ones. Now I'm selling a product that the federal government hasn't approved, and that has its own set of challenges. But it's all about sales. It's all about marketing. It's all about putting yourself and your product in front of people and making sure that they even know you exist. And how do you do that in cannabis when you can't advertise on certain channels? Most people view the internet nowadays through the meta lens, right? Whether that's Facebook,
Hmm.
Instagram, WhatsApp, things of that nature. And they don't allow you to put any money behind your product, and they're shutting down Instagram pages left and right. Um,
Oh wow, I didn't realize that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of complexities that you have to deal with in cannabis. I oftentimes tell myself, you know what, it may have been better for me just to go back and figure the law degree out and practice law. It may have been an easier hill to climb versus being in cannabis. But I love cannabis. The first time I went to a cannabis conference, I remember calling my dad from the conference floor and saying, "Dad, I found my people. I found my purpose.
Mm,
This is where I want to be." And since then, we've been rolling.
that's great, great. And you mentioned marketing, and that's a great segue to this. So, who would you say is your target market? I mean, in all the things that you've done so far, who's the individual that usually will gravitate to like a lemonade versus, I guess, just regular smoking?
Yeah, at first I used to say that our target market was everyone. Where it's lemonade, everybody can drink lemonade. And then as we started to get out to more shows and touch more of the consumers, I was saying the consumer was me, right? People who look like me, young urban professionals. But all of that is false, right? What we found since launching in Massachusetts is people with chronic pain are the number one users of our product, right? They're
Mm,
reaching
mm,
out, they're trying to find ways to heal themselves, and or to not use the opioids that they're prescribed. We recently did a feature with a young lady who, she's 30 years old, and she was diagnosed with breast cancer, right?
mm.
Although it was stage 0 breast cancer, she still went and had a mastectomy to make sure that there was no breast tissue that was cancerous. And she said that rather than using the opioids, she found our lemonade and used our lemonade in her recovery. Right. So
Okay.
I for one, am not telling people to do that. Right. I'm telling people to consult your doctor and do what's best for your body. But I was impressed that she did that.
Hmm, hmm.
And, I get stories like that all the time. People reaching out and saying, how they've discovered the lemonade and they love it.
Right, right. And that's something I guess you can't market, I would think, or can't really advertise,
Right. Right.
unfortunately. But and I guess because of her chronic pain, it was easier to drink the lemonade versus smoking, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, she wasn't really a smoker. She was a collegiate athlete,
Oh, I
and so she
see.
took care of her body. Um, she, if she sees this, I hope she's doing well because she recently tore her ACL playing basketball in a pickup league, and she was supposed to have surgery on her ACL on Friday. Her
Mm,
husband stopped by and picked up some lemonade for her recovery.
wow.
Um,
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, she was saying that when she took the opioids, she just felt lethargic and she felt like she was in a haze. And when she had the lemonade, she was able to get back to herself. And she was a new mother, had a son who was 2 at the time, and she was
Hmm.
able to, kind of play with him, although not roughhouse, but play with him a little bit during her recovery. So she credited our lemonade for that.
Okay. And and does the and which is a good question that I feel, does is it what does the lemonade, and I'm trying to think of the word, but process in your body differently than if you smoke, I guess is
Yeah,
what.
absolutely, right? And so it's just the way it metabolizes through your
Okay.
body. When you smoke, it tends to be a faster instant effect. The lemonade is more like an edible where it has to
Oh,
metabolize
okay.
through your digestive system. But we are using technology, nanotechnology that allows for a faster onset, and it also allows for a suspension, right? So you're going to get the same amount of milligrams in the first couple of sips as you would in the last couple of sips, which is much different than our original product, right? And this is why it took a long time for us to get our formulation together, because although I loved the product that we made for my mom, I know that the first couple of drinks of the lemonade was stronger than the last, right? Because
Mm.
of the separation in the molecules and all the scientific nature of the infusion.
Wow, that's fascinating. How were you able to determine that part?
Yeah, a lot of hard work and testing. And we actually partnered with a FDA certified lab to figure this out and get our commercial formulation correct.
Okay. And so the nano, I guess the nanotechnology, which means, I guess, how you
The
stimulate.
THC particles are smaller, and
Okay.
they're able to metabolize a little faster.
Got you. So it allows a more balanced, a balanced, how it metastasizes in the body, I would assume.
Absolutely balanced, faster. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. Um, so I guess since I used to work with entrepreneurs in the past. So what's your future forecasting? Where do you see the business? Where do you think you would like to go with the Best Dirty Lemonade?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I feel like we want to bring it to the masses, right? That's the only reason why we even developed our hemp derived Delta 9 version, right? Because we know that given the legalities, we can get the lemonade to more people this way, more people who need the lemonade and could use the therapeutic effects. But we have our eyes set on a couple of states, and we're in talks with people who are licensed in those states to bring it to them. So we're excited.
Okay, and what makes the hemp Delta 9 different than your original product?
Um, it's just how the cannabinoids are processed. So,
Okay.
according to the 2018 Farm Bill, Congress allowed hemp to be classified differently. So, as long as you have less than 0.3% of hemp by dry weight in your product, it's legal according to the Farm Bill. Now, some states have come behind the Farm Bill and added more regulation and said, like, you can't do it. For example, Iowa, right, is one state that doesn't allow for this. But in all states that currently allow hemp derived Delta 9 products, we will sell it to them via the internet.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Um, well, this has been a fascinating and wonderful just to hear about your product. I guess I'm sure when I before you if you don't get to New Jersey very soon, I'll have to take a trip to just Massachusetts to try it out because yeah, I mean I would probably myself prefer to drink it as opposed to smoke it. Because one thing about about smoking is that the smell is just outrageous. You just know you
You know
know
who just smoked.
you know who just smoked, or right next to you, and that can be a little tough at times. But a drink, you can't. There's no real smell. So I would say, maybe I would play up that advantage.
Absolutely.
You won't.
Absolutely.
It could feel good, and you don't know you don't know I'm coming. So
Yeah, so we did a whole ad campaign that we couldn't put out around Thanksgiving last year, right?
okay,
And the thought was you and your cousins don't have to go take that walk anymore before the dinner, right?
okay.
You can discreetly drink the lemonade at the dinner table and no one would know.
Nobody would know. Yeah.
Because there's always those cousins in this family dynamics that think they're being discreet and they just come back either smelling like marijuana or they smell like cologne on top of marijuana, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the family just turns a blind eye, but we all know what's going on.
Yeah, the smell is just so strong. And I don't know. I mean, it just seems so much stronger now. You'll be in your car and you'll be okay, yeah, right next the car next to you, they're smoking in there because it's just so potent.
Absolutely.
So yeah, thank you. Um, so even though you have to be in Massachusetts to buy your product, how can people just follow your journey and that may be interested in purchasing the product or just following your story?
Yeah, you can follow us on both Facebook and Instagram at the Best Dirty Lemonade. I'm sorry, Facebook and Instagram at Best Dirty Lemonade. I did mention that they shut down pages, so we had to
Oh,
pivot
right.
our page.
You got to keep creating. Wow.
Yes, yes.
This doesn't make any sense, but I don't understand it. So, well, thank you. I always like to end the show, and I usually don't tell the guests of this question because I always want it to be authentic from the
No worries.
from the beginning. But we as Black men, we're always working to on that grind, really trying to support. You were supporting your mom, and I know with that came with a lot of responsibility, and you probably took on a lot emotionally. But one of the questions I like to ask and you to give thought to is, as a Black man, how are you feeling right now as a Black man?
Right now, I would say I'm tired, right? We're building a brand, going cross country, making sure that our production partners have what they need and dispensaries are displaying the brand properly. So I feel tired, but I feel hopeful, right?
Mm.
I see where this journey has come, and I'm hopeful for the future. Um, I'm excited to get to have conversations about a product that helped my mother with people like you bringing it to the masses. I mean, I'm hopeful. That's the answer. Hopeful.
Hopeful. Okay, that's great. Well, Amari, I just thank you for being on today. This has truly been a treat, and I'm glad that we were able to accommodate today. And like I said, I look forward to at some point being able to try the best dirty lemonade. Maybe somebody will have a stand somewhere, and I'll have to pull over. So, thank you, and those of you that are regular listeners, stay tuned for our next show today, which will be at 6 o'clock. So I look forward to seeing everyone. All right, take care.